Hello, I'm Dilek Tuna. You're watching A News. Let's take a look at today's top stories. US President Donald Trump says Iran wants to make a deal. UN nuclear watchdog chief calls the Ukraine war the world's biggest nuclear safety risk. And UN Secretary General warns of global institutions' financial collapse. US President Donald Trump on Friday said that Iran wants to make a deal but gave no other details, saying, "We'll see what happens." He also warned Iran to return to negotiations over its nuclear program or face far harsher US action, while Tehran has threatened retaliation against the United States, Israel and their allies in the event of an attack.
They have to float someplace. They might as well float near Iran, but it's a rough situation going on. So I stopped 837 people, as you know, last week from being hung. They were going to hang 830. It was all set. And I mean, I'm looking at the people behind me. They're saying, what kind of racing's a lot nicer than that. They were going to hang 837 people. And I told them, if you do it, you're going to pay a price like nobody's ever paid before. And they pulled back. I appreciated that. But a lot of people are being killed. So we'll see what happens. I can say this.
The United States has approved more than $15 billion in new arms sales to Israel and Saudi Arabia as tensions remain high across the Middle East. According to the Pentagon, the State Department cleared $9 billion in missile sales to Saudi Arabia, including 730 Patriot PAC-3 interceptor missiles. US officials say the deal will not alter the region's military balance or affect American defense readiness. Israel, meanwhile, is set to purchase 30 Apache attack helicopters, thousands of joint light tactical vehicles, and additional military equipment, totaling almost $6.7 billion. Congress has been formally notified of both arms packages. Elon Musk has issued a public response after his name appeared in newly released US Justice Department files connected to Jeffrey Epstein. The records include emails showing brief contact, including a message in which Musk asked about a possible event but declined an invitation to visit Epstein's private island. On social media platform X, Musk said he expected the messages could be misread and used against him. He stressed that his contact with Epstein was limited and said he had repeatedly refused invitations to travel with him. Musk also said he supported making the files public. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency has warned that the war in Ukraine remains the world's greatest threat to nuclear safety as the conflict approaches its fifth year. UN nuclear watchdog chief Rafael Grossi told the agency's board of governors that fighting around nuclear facilities continues to pose serious risks. He said the agency is providing regular updates on conditions at Ukraine's nuclear sites. Grossi emphasised the agency's role in preventing escalation, saying international oversight can help maintain stability and predictability during an ongoing war.
The ZNPP, the latest, as you know, is that over the past months, I have negotiated together with Ukrainian and Russian counterparts 4 separate temporary ceasefire agreements between both sides for 5 separate repairs of the power lines connected to the plant. Most recently, on Monday, 19th January, ZNPP was reconnected to its last remaining backup power line after successful repairs were completed under the latest temporary ceasefire. This 330 kilovolt backup line had been damaged and disconnected since 2nd of January, reportedly because of military activity.
Russia says the format of the next round of trilateral talks with the United States and Ukraine in Abu Dhabi is still being negotiated. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said discussions on the format would continue until talks begin on the 1st of February, adding they could run for up to 2 days if needed. He said Russia has proposed a 1-year extension of the New START nuclear arms reduction treaty, which expires on the 5th of February, but has received no response from the United States. Peskov added Moscow has yet to hear back from Ukraine on an invitation for President Volodymyr Zelensky to attend peace talks in Moscow. The planned meeting follows the first trilateral talks since the war began in February 2022, held in Abu Dhabi last weekend. Freezing temperatures and power cuts are forcing Kyiv residents to rely on emergency heating centres as Ukraine braces for one of the coldest stretches of winter. At the same time, a fragile US-backed pause in attacks on energy infrastructure is offering brief relief.
As freezing temperatures grip Ukraine's capital, Kyiv residents have been seeking shelter at emergency heating points set up across the city to help people cope with power cuts and extreme cold. In the Desnyansky district, a school heated by a mobile boiler became a refuge. Volunteers handed out hot meals to long lines of people, including railway workers brought in from the eastern town of Kupiansk to help repair damaged infrastructure.
We came to help the city of Kyiv. We are restoring water supply, heating networks. In short, we are doing auxiliary work on heating communications.
The situation is terrible, horrific. It was impossible to imagine that such a thing could happen in the 21st century.
Weather forecasts warn temperatures could drop to minus 22 degrees Celsius in the coming days. School staff say they are prepared to keep facilities open around the clock as conditions worsen.
We are doing this for victory, so that victory is ours, so that everything is fine.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said there were no strikes on energy facilities overnight, following a US-backed agreement aimed at reducing attacks on critical infrastructure. Speaking in his nightly address, Zelensky said Ukraine did not hit Russian energy targets and was ready to continue observing the pause.
The American side spoke about refraining from strikes on energy infrastructure for 1 week, and the countdown began last night. How this proceeds depends, of course, on our partners, primarily the United States. Ukraine is ready to mirror this restraint, and today we did not strike Russian energy facilities.
Russia has agreed to a request from US President Donald Trump to halt airstrikes on Kyiv until February 1st, as Washington pushes for a diplomatic path to end the war. Ukraine says it is prepared to reciprocate.
And joining us now to discuss the latest situation on the Russia-Ukraine war and the situation on the ground is Andy Ordinovich, retired colonel from the Armed Forces of Ukraine, joining us from Kyiv, Ukraine. Colonel, welcome to the program.
Yes, thank you for having me today.
Now, Russia's agreed to suspend attacks on energy facilities at Trump's request. Is that happening? Perhaps you could paint the situation on the ground for our viewers.
As for today, it is true, if you will take into consideration the wording of our president, really for this overnight, the Russian did not target the electrical grid facility. But at the same time, they started to target the logistical hub and connection specifically with our railway connectivity and amount of the critical facility of Ukrainian railways. It is also electrical some venues. But as for now, this overnight, the Russia really did not target electrical critical facility, any type of the plan what we had. But it's almost destroyed everything. And right now, based on international assistance and support, we are getting numbers of generators, a different type, almost equal to the one nuclear plant generation of in Ukraine. It is a good sign of international support and good sign of supporting Ukrainian people in this very heavy winter time. Over for the last probably 10 years, we did not have such winter.
And what's the situation what's the effect on the population in terms of the difficulties created by the attacks on energy facilities?
As I understood, because we are living in Kiev and other cities of Ukraine, we are trying to be as much as possible resilient, as much as possible resist any kind of terrorist attack from Russian Federation. And people are suffering, but in the same time, they are trying to tackle problem. They are very much united. Numbers of volunteers came to help, as well as a local authority on the different provincial level and central level, looking for possibility. Our emergency service put at numbers of tents, which are providing food, which are providing electricity. Some people are coming to refill a power bank in order to have some possibility internet connectivity. It looks like the Ukrainian government and Ukrainian people united in front of this terrorist attack, as well as circumstances what appear after that.
And Colonel, Moscow has spoken of military progress on the ground, particularly in Zaporizhia and Donetsk. But have there been any significant Russian victories?
Actually, for this month, I could not say. Yes, they are slightly agreement, like for the last week, they've been able to catch 24 square kilometers. The direction of their main efforts are not changeable already half of the year. It is Zaporizhia direction, it is Kupiansk direction, it is Pokrovsk, Mirnograd, agglomerate of the city, with the same purpose. Try to get with the heavily cost of losing troops. And it is started to be already understandable for them, but what we have, we are trying to refigurate our military troops on the ground. We are trying to improve our air defense with new assignment of new Ministry of Defense. With main focus was done to the so-called small air defense system, which the UAV interceptors, trying to get more lies on the air defense. But okay, we are still not having the strategic and tactical initiative on the ground, but we are doing preparation. We are trying to get some kind of new formation, rebuilding our strategic reserves. I believe the General Staff is doing appropriate planning. We are in the good mood and morale is high to fight and liberate our countries.
And Trump says that an agreement between Russia and Ukraine seems to be close. Do you believe that Ukraine will cede the entire Donbass in exchange for peace?
I don't believe it. The issue of territorial ceding is very much strategic and critical one. I don't believe it. Ukrainian side would easily agree on exchange and main concession on it. And as you know, recently Mr. Lavrov offered a request to United Nations Secretary General about the possibility to applying so-called self-determination of Russian occupied territory of Ukraine, and the Secretary General Antonio Guterres has publicly rejected this and said that it is not applicable for self-determination principle in this case, and principle territorial integrity of Ukraine take precedent under international law. And I completely agree with this stance for, and it's not gonna help. We could, I believe it, recognize a temporary occupied territory as a temporary occupied, but not make concession on any kind of it, because it is territory of Ukrainian people. From year to year, the size of their population keeping the same. The millions of people from Donetsk, Lugansk, and temporary occupied territory being left of this territory and living right now as internally displaced persons, and they have to have rights to have all their land back.
And lastly, Colonel Andrei, Putin's special envoy Kirill Dmitriev travelled to Miami on Saturday for meetings with members of the US President's administration. What significance do you see in this?
I believe that everything would be discussed on the so-called peace agreement. Whether how many bullets, it depends the final version of it, but the key issue it is a territory and Zaporizhia nuclear plan, as well as I believe that they will keep this track, and hopefully in one day after tomorrow we would have another meeting of Ukrainian and Russian side by mitigation of US side. I guess his visit to Mar-a-Lago only to get some kind of US support and trying to give a more push on the Ukrainian side during the upcoming negotiation, if they're gonna be, because right now the different information is flying. I am not expecting anything serious there, because obvious what they would like. They would like subjugate Ukraine. They would like to reduce level of resilience, reduce numbers of our troops, try to pull out of international support, including coalition of willing, and so on, so on. We will see. Right now, we have only some kind of light indication that little bit they're changing their attitude and mood during the informal discussion. But when negotiation is going on, they are still thick with the very maximalist, the strategic aims and their objectives of this war of aggression against Ukraine.
Colonel Andrei, thank you so much for joining us on the program. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you to you for invitation one more time.
The New START nuclear treaty between the United States and Russia is set to expire within days. Experts say unless the two sides reach a last-minute agreement, a move that would leave the world's two largest nuclear powers without formal limits on their strategic arsenals for the first time in decades.
The world's last remaining nuclear arms control treaty between the United States and Russia is about to expire, raising fresh concerns over strategic stability and a renewed arms race. The New START treaty is set to lapse on February 5th unless Washington and Moscow reach a last-minute agreement. If it ends, the two countries would be left for the first time in more than 50 years without any binding limits on their strategic nuclear weapons. Signed in 2010, New START caps the number of deployed nuclear warheads, missiles and bombers, and allows inspections and data exchanges aimed at building transparency and trust.
With the loss of New START now, and the loss or in the absence of the negotiation for some kind of replacement for New START, we continue this loss of communication between the two sides on these critical strategic issues. Having said that, I mean, Russia had suspended its participation in New START back in 2023, so we've not had these data exchanges for quite some time.
That loss of communication matters. Without inspections or verified data, both sides are left relying on assumptions, increasing mistrust and the risk of miscalculation. The security environment has also changed. Russia has tested new nuclear-capable systems beyond the treaty's scope, while the United States is increasingly focused on China's expanding nuclear arsenal.
The New START is one of the most important instruments of arms control. Its purpose is to ensure strategic stability and avoid an uncontrolled arms race and escalation risks.
Meanwhile, the Kremlin says a potential off-ramp was left unanswered. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Russia proposed continuing to comply with New START for 1 year after its expiration. Russian President Vladimir Putin has backed extending existing limits to buy time for further talks. US President Donald Trump has yet to formally respond, saying the treaty should be replaced with a better one, even if it expires. Some US politicians argue Washington should expand its arsenal to counter China, while Beijing rejects joining talks as long as US and Russian arsenals remain far larger than its own. If New START expires without a replacement, there will be no shared rules, no inspections and no formal limits.
More than 200 people have been killed after a coltan mine collapsed in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. The accident happened at the Rubaya mine, one of the world's largest sources of coltan, a mineral widely used in mobile phones, computers and aerospace equipment. The site has been under the control of the AFC M23 rebel group since last year, and many miners work there for just a few dollars a day. Officials say the collapse occurred on Wednesday. Officials have not yet confirmed the total number of victims, but warned the toll is expected to rise. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer met with Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi in Tokyo on Saturday. The two leaders agreed to deepen cooperation on economy and technology. The talks came as Takaichi campaigns for re-election in a snap poll scheduled for the 8th of February, with a focus on reviving Japan's economy. Both leaders stressed the urgent need to work together and with like-minded partners to strengthen supply chains for critical minerals, and agreed to expand cooperation in cybersecurity and space. China is preparing for what could be its busiest Spring Festival travel rush on record, with authorities expecting as many as 9.5 billion passenger trips during the holiday period. The movement highlights the scale of domestic travel as millions return home for the Lunar New Year. Our correspondent has more.
China expects a record high of 9.5 billion passenger trips during the 2026 Spring Festival travel rush, according to transport authorities, highlighting the scale of domestic mobility during the country's most important annual holiday period. The figure includes journeys made by rail, road, air and waterways, and would mark an increase from last year's already historic levels. The Spring Festival, also known as the Lunar New Year, marks the beginning of the lunar calendar and is China's most significant cultural celebration, traditionally centered on family reunions, ancestral rituals, and extended public holidays. Millions of people travel from major cities back to their hometowns to celebrate with relatives before returning to work and school after the holiday period. Rail travel is forecast to account for about 510 million passenger trips, while civil aviation is also expected to see strong growth, with airlines anticipating more than 90 million passenger journeys. Road travel is projected to dominate overall movement, contributing the vast majority of trips as people drive or take long-distance buses back to their hometowns. Authorities said nationwide preparations are underway to manage the surge, including capacity expansion, improved ticketing systems, and tighter coordination between transport hubs. The Spring Festival travel rush is considered the world's largest annual human migration and is closely watched as an indicator of economic vitality and consumer confidence in China. Manuel Makhtim, A News, Beijing.
And now we'll take a look at the major stories from the region. A vast rail network stretching across Eurasia is reshaping global trade by cutting distances and connecting economies like never before. Backed by growing rail links from Western China to Europe, the project is being hailed as a boost for jobs, development and regional stability.
The China-Europe freight train service is reshaping trade across the Eurasian continent by improving connectivity and opening new economic opportunities, experts say. As a key project under the Belt and Road Initiative, the rail network has grown rapidly. By October 2025, it connected 232 cities in 26 European countries, with more than 100 cities in 11 Asian countries. The system has become one of the largest cross-continental logistics networks in the world. Jihan, in northwest China's Shanxi province, sits at the center of this network. The ancient city was once the starting point of the Silk Road. Today, it serves as a major hub for what are now known as modern steel camel caravans.
And I think the excitement of this is that it really improves the productivity and the efficiency of moving goods back and forth, and it actually improves the living standards of the people throughout this long line of connectivity and creates millions of jobs in different countries. Especially, it is meaningful for many of the Central Asian countries because many of them are landlocked traditionally and find it very difficult to have access to markets far away. I think this lays a much better groundwork for peace and prosperity, stability and development.
Victor Gao Jikai, Vice President of the Center for China and Globalization, also described the freight trains as a strong symbol of free trade at a time of growing protectionism. He said better connectivity can support long-term growth, stability and cooperation across the region.
Ambassadors from European Union member states have approved a new military assistance package for Armenia worth 20 million euros. The decision has sparked concern among regional experts who warn it could undermine fragile peace efforts in the South Caucasus.
The European Union has agreed to provide Armenia with 20 million euros in military assistance under the European Peace Facility. EU officials say the support will be limited to non-lethal military equipment. This follows an earlier allocation of 10 million euros in 2024, the first time in history that the EU provided military-related support to Armenia under the facility. However, the move has triggered criticism from analysts and regional observers, particularly in Azerbaijan, where experts argue the decision risks destabilizing the region.
Let's go back to the agreement, the cooperation agreement between EU and Armenia, and it was actually a very paradoxical document which already included some statements that broke the peace agenda and the peace process regarding to the criteria and to the outcomes of the Washington summit. So it's really unclear who pushed for this agreement in the European Union, which parliamentarians are voting for this, what was the background of this agreement, and why it is military assistance the main priority of these major budget allocations and money allocations to Armenia.
The expert says the EU's decision could become a serious obstacle to the peace-building process between Azerbaijan and Armenia, warning that instead of supporting reconciliation, it may fuel renewed tensions.
If the conflict is over, it's not logical that EU giving so much budget, so much and many euros to Armenia because we are now on the peace process and there's no, let's say, military factor in the peace agenda. So it's very controversial, and I will say it's even double standards. From one side, EU supporting the peace agenda and the outcomes of the Washington summit, and we can understand this perspective from the statements of Ursula von der Leyen, from the Costa and other officials. From the other side, this really controversial.
According to the expert, Baku has also expressed concern that previous EU policy documents outlining strategic cooperation with Armenia included issues that, in Azerbaijan's view, revive past disputes instead of focusing on future-oriented peace. Azerbaijan has been working to place its relations with the European Union on a positive footing, while viewing the bloc's current stance as increasingly unbalanced. As diplomatic efforts continue, the experts stressed that maintaining neutrality and balance will be crucial if the European Union hopes to contribute meaningfully to lasting peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia.
With only 3 months remaining until the 13th World Urban Forum, a special information session was held for media representatives. Journalists and media executives took part in an in-depth briefing on WOOF 13 with a strong focus on the role of the media in the forum. Speaking at the session, UN Habitat Chief of Communications Ekaterina Bezkachina said the World Urban Forum is the second largest conference of the United Nations. She noted that this year's forum will focus on housing as well as building safe and resilient communities. Bezkachina also highlighted what is new for WOOF 13, outlining the key expectations and priorities of this year's forum.
So there is always something from the host in every World Urban Forum. They bring something new. And Azerbaijan is a very enthusiastic host. They are proposing a lot of ideas. One of the ideas that they want to realize is to have a high-level summit where they bring top people, top thinkers, political leaders to focus on the housing. So it is very important. Also, we would like to engage more private sector, startups, innovators to offer us innovative housing solutions. They can come and be part of the Urban Expo. So that is something new and interesting that is going to happen.
That's the news for this hour. Stay tuned to A News for more updates.